Good morning and welcome to the Tech Lab Brief, your daily heartbeat of technology and reminder that the reports of the machines taking over have been greatly exaggerated. We are your hosts,
I'm Jaden.
and I'm BK. Let's jump right into it. So Chinese AI giants launch a new wave of frontier models. Over the past week, Chinese leading AI companies have unveiled major model upgrades in rapid succession. Rather than one company leading the pack, we're seeing an increasingly competitive ecosystem where multiple frontier labs continuously leapfrog one another.
So it seems like these Chinese companies are keeping up, huh?
More than keeping up, I feel like they might be taking advantages in or taking the leads in other areas where, we have our OpenAIs and our Anthropics, or rather the OpenAI and the Anthropic maybe advancing in one way, but there might be some other advantages that these Chinese AIs are bringing up.
And how do they perform compared to the frontier models?
Well,
But
that is an area of research that is ongoing here at BK Tech Labs.
mm,
I guess to dig into the details a little bit, we have Moonshot AI releasing their Kimi 3. That was about last week with nearly 3 trillion parameters. And then Alibaba just released Quen 3.8 about a day ago. And now DeepSeek went full release with their V4. You have these Chinese AI companies that are just keeping up, if not giving the US frontier companies a run for their money.
what are your thoughts on that?
What does it mean to win?
As in, what, a model company?
Right.
I mean, it's hard to be sure because OpenAI and Anthropic, obviously, they have strong models. However, they have the most distribution. They have the most output with their models, right? We see a lot of the population, or most of the population, using ChatGPT and Claude rather than these Chinese models. So although they might have performed better on some benchmarks, is it really winning if they can't get the public to use it, or they don't get the public to really use it, at least on a global scale?
Well, it definitely seems that OpenAI and Anthropic have a strong foothold across the landscape that's basically not Asia. I mean, they were going to cover about how tech companies are doing in the EU, but there are also reports that companies are increasingly moving towards these open weight models, these
Right.
that are being made available by these Chinese AI companies. And it's more than, as I think, as you're implying, it's more than just benchmarks.
Mm.
So again, what does it really mean to win, and where do we really stand currently in this AI race? I think we're going to learn a little bit more as we cover the next story here.
Right. So Meta in talks to lease billions of dollars in AI infrastructure to Anthropic. So Meta is reportedly in early discussions to lease the AI computing capacity to Anthropic, the company behind Claude. If this deal is finalized, the agreement could be worth up to $10 billion over 2 years, marking Meta's first major step towards monetizing its massive AI infrastructure investments by selling compute to external companies.
So Meta is selling their compute.
To Anthropic.
Isn't Meta a software company?
That's what I thought too. I mean, it seems like, I mean, with the size of Meta, they do have a lot of data centers. They are going to need data centers to run their software and the various applications that they host. So, but to see them starting to take a dip into like selling their infrastructures, allowing Anthropic to use their data centers for their models, for the Claude models, I think that's an interesting term.
Mm-hmm. So if Meta is selling their compute, what does that say about their capacity, their own capacity, that they're looking to, let's say, lease that out to another tech company like Anthropic?
What do you mean? As in their
Well, they invested they've made such an investment into their hardware infrastructure to run their software,
hmm,
but it seems like they have extra left over to be leasing out to a company like Anthropic.
right. So it sounds like, I mean, it sounds to me that, you know, a big important thing in this AI race is compute as well, right? And if they were to lease Anthropic some of its data centers, then that could help them maybe have a competitive advantage. Because if you don't have compute, you're not able to run these models. And so having that, ensuring that Anthropic has that reliance, I feel like might be a significant intention as to why they might want to do this.
It could be good for both companies.
Right.
So thusly, we labeled this particular segment as the Great Alliance, which also happens to be an ongoing story that we will cover throughout, is that these tech companies are working together. They're collaborating. They're, in a way, looking out for one another, right? Meta's basically saying, we have this extra compute. And Anthropic's like, we need it. So maybe we can work out a deal here. In the same way, XAI and Grok has done the same thing with Anthropic. In fact, we're seeing that perhaps the demand for AI is strongest over with Anthropic and Claude. So, it's even though these other companies, AI companies, have built, like XAI and Meta have already invested in trying to build their own models, it hasn't taken off quite like it has with Anthropic. So, how do we make this all work? And working together seems to be the key here.
Right. Even if they are direct competitors, Meta leads the Llama models. Llama and Claude, they're kind of competing models. So that's
They
it.
seem to be working together.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll switch gears from the U.S. all the way out. Now we'll make our way to China, going back to a story previously covered known as The Great Breakup, which is about China cracking down on AI companions. And going a little bit deeper from the first coverage we had last week, Chinese regulators have introduced new rules aimed at preventing AI from encouraging emotional dependencies or replacing real-world relationships. The regulations come amid broader concerns over China's declining birth rate and shrinking population.
Do you think China's concerned that their users are actively preferring AI relationships over human relationships?
I do think they're concerned, yes. And do you think that this is a concern that's just isolated to Asia or China?
No. There's a various few people, I'd say even here in the US, in America, this is a ongoing thing where we see a lot of people start to, rely on these models for emotional support and things like that. And so to see them kind of start to maybe go into relationships as well, it doesn't surprise me.
Right.
I've even saw on social media someone, I'm not sure if it was a joke or not, but someone getting married to
Yes.
an AI model.
I did see that. I think that was over in Japan where that happened, in fact.
Right.
I do feel like AI has a very good ability to objectively read our situations, our personal situations, whatnot, however much or little we decide to share, and give us an objective take on how to process maybe certain difficult situations in a better way. But then there is that line that goes into saying, I want to be with you forever.
Oh yeah. I think these, I believe AI products at least, and maybe since China is very much concerned about it, I haven't seen OpenAI or Anthropic talk about anything like this.
Mm.
But they may need to start like installing some safeguards to sort of prevent these kind of things from happening, Maybe have the AI sort of try to encourage their user to take a break or go offline, or maybe this isn't right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think to China's credit, they have been really advancing towards building a more healthy relationship with technology.
Hmm.
There have been laws about like placing a limit on how many hours kids play games and stuff like that. And now emotional dependence, because that is becoming an issue. I would love to see this more collaborative effort, going back to the idea of working together, where, the US does take the hint from China that they are confronting this particular issue. And,
Mm.
I guess us as Americans living in this nation and walking these streets, we do see similar issues. So
Maybe it's time we do something about it, or it's time we add some kind of safety so that people don't emotionally rely on these AIs.
yeah, we'll see where this all goes. But for now, we'll make a brief entrance into the space in between.
Right. So Google and Apple clash with the EU over the future of AI assistants. The European Union is tightening enforcement of its Digital Markets Act, requiring major platforms, operators like Google and Apple, to open their mobile operating systems to competing AI assistants. Regulators argue that this will increase consumer choice and prevent dominant companies from giving their own AI services an unfair advantage.
Yeah, so the EU is basically saying, hey, Google and Apple, you guys have your AIs and assistants, so can you make that available across the spectrum?
What are your thoughts on that? Do you think users should have that choice to?
I think there comes a time when, or rather, I look forward to a time
Hmm.
when users have a deeper insight to what they get out of these different AI models. But I don't really see this as being the big win at the moment. But who knows? Maybe by taking care of this situation ahead of time, it'll set us up to begin that journey of really figuring out what's the difference between each model, what do they have
Right.
to offer, and giving the consumers more depth and empowering them with that knowledge of why should I go with one AI over another for this particular situation.
Hmm. And I think that's an interesting point that you brought up. I think this dispute that's going on right now could possibly be, shaping the future of smartphone AI. Maybe users are going to have the ability to freely choose their assistants, whether it be ChatGPT, Claude, or maybe even Perplexity, Grok, as it's integrated into their system. So I believe it's an interesting turning point. I also believe that Google and maybe what was it, Apple, they also don't want this to happen because I believe there might be some privacy concerns. You don't want the other models like Claude and GPT to have access to certain things on your operating system. So there is that as well.
Mm. Yeah, I guess going back to the average consumer, to what extent is it their priority to access all these AIs? To what extent do they concern about privacy? These are all ongoing stories of what does the future look like for us with AI?
Mm.
And yeah, I think we are absolutely moving towards an integration of AI technology into our mobile phones. And those who use the apps use them and those who don't. But we are moving increasingly towards the AIs being a more first citizen option on our apps, which does bring me back to the reminder that the reports of machines taking over are greatly exaggerated. So take that for what it is. And on that note, we'll move to the last segment about automating security. OpenAI hardens AI models with GPT-Red, a security system that evolves autonomous agents from our basic models to read emails, browse the web, and execute code. So automating all that is becoming a security risk, and malicious third parties can trick AIs into performing unauthorized actions. And to tackle this, OpenAI developed GPT-Red, an internal AI system trained via self-play reinforcement learning to automatically find and exploit prompt injection flaws before attackers can discover them.
What do you think about using AI to attack against AI or defend against AI, especially these prompt injection attacks?
I think this is about on par for the way that the security industry has operated, and now we're automating everything. And we're just going to have to really trust one another that finding these vulnerabilities is that we're going to find the vulnerabilities and we're going to fix them. And then at this point, what is a bad guy? And there are malicious agents out there, no doubt, malicious
Right.
human agents out there that are using AIs in a malicious way. But I believe that as the forces, let's call it the forces of good, grow to work together and prevent, to make sure that these malicious agents or entities can be stalled in their tracks, right? They're going to find vulnerabilities. We're going to find vulnerabilities, and we got to find our way to feeling like AI is serving a good purpose for us.
We ultimately want to lead to that. The future of AI isn't just building whatever model is most capable or smartest, right? It's also building a model that can safely operate within the world.
Mm.
And I think the internet is a very, very dangerous place right now. Obviously, there's a lot of prompt injection attacks that, a model might come across. There's a lot of malicious content on there. So it's very important that we develop these systems that can actively come across these things and build some defenses on it.
Security is important, yes.
Yes, very.
And there's a general audience. We're all, and as students studying in the world of technology, I imagine you're still on this journey to learn more about what the security means and whatnot. I think that is a very interesting segue as we exit our new segment for the day and enter into today's knowledge segment. Jalen, what's today's knowledge segment?
Today we're going to talk about what actually makes an AI company competitive.
Mm-mm.
I feel like there's a lot of things to consider. You know, it's not just models, it's not just compute. There's definitely a lot of things to consider, and that's what we're going to be diving into today.
All right, so we're on ReChat, which is our AI replaying app. AI company competitive stages explained. Okay, bring this down. Generate a knowledge segment for a broad audience. Talk about what makes AI company actually competitive. So into these different stages, give a paragraph for each stage and add a bullet point list of these from each stage.
All right, let's see what it's going to come up with. So first we start off with the model. We have OpenAI, Anthropic, Google DeepMind, Meta, and then we're moving on to compute.
We'll pause a little bit.
Okay.
So what makes a model competitive?
So I think, as it says in the ReChat, right, the foundation of any AI company is a model itself. The raw algorithmic capability, the intelligence of the model, the speed of the model, those are what makes a model competitive.
Yeah, so speed, you said speed and intelligence, right? Those are two really good factors. And maybe we'll add cost in there.
Right.
Because between speed and cost, those are really easy to measure, right? It's an easy number to just compute and use as our metric. But then that third one, intelligence. How do you measure intelligence?
It's hard to say. We don't even know it's hard to say what intelligence even is. That's why we have dozens of these various benchmarks that every time an AI is released, it's tested on all of these benchmarks. But I'd say an average of all of these benchmarks might be able to determine how intelligent an AI system might be. But when compared to humans, it's hard to say what intelligence could actually mean. So that's where it goes into the deeper philosophical debate, right?
Philosophical. There's something there about associating that with intelligence, for better or worse. So moving on to compute.
Yeah, we have AI, Anthropic, or DeepMind.
Right, we have these AI companies have their models. So then moves on to compute. Oh, we're just talking about that word.
Right. Like NVIDIA, AWS, Google Cloud. I know a lot of these models, especially Anthropic. I believe Anthropic likes to rely on AWS for hosting their models as well. So I think that's interesting. Without the compute, we don't have these models anyway. So it's a very important part of this infrastructure and what makes a company actually competitive. How much compute do they actually have?
Yeah, so you mentioned about Anthropic being using AWS, which I remember very early on, they did partner with AWS to offer their models off of AWS's platform, AWS being Amazon. But we just covered a news article on Anthropic partnering with Meta to use their compute.
Right. Yeah. So it seems like, they both get this competitive advantage of compute. Meta allows Anthropic to rely on them for the Claude models, and Anthropic is sort of getting a boost with Meta's new compute. And it's hard to run all this AI infrastructure. It's hard to train these models. You need a lot of money, essentially a lot of computers to be able to run all of these computations. But yeah, it seems like this is where it's going. Compute is a very important part of this infrastructure.
Yeah, I think Sam Altman said something about that one time, but compute being the new economy or new currency.
I could definitely see that. Yeah.
So we had the models themselves, and then the compute that they run on. And then
Now we're talking about distribution. It looks like
distribution was what we're next.
I remember we did touch on distribution as well, especially with the EU regulations, right? Of course, Google and Apple, they're going to want to integrate their own systems or their own AI assistants into their operating systems. Anthropic, OpenAI, they seem to have the biggest outreach right now in terms of AI systems in general. So distribution is a very important factor in what makes a company competitive. We have Microsoft, Apple, Google, and Meta as well.
They all have their ways of finding the use case for the AIs. Yeah.
Mm.
So distribution, and now we work the. Well, I believe that's the last part of safety. Mm.
Safety, and then I think we have policy afterwards.
Mm.
Here it is.
Which, I mean, we could say are somewhat related.
Yeah, I'd say safety kind of might deal into the more technical side of the actually making the models safe in general, and policy might, involve making it safe or making it reliable across governments.
Setting the rules,
Yeah,
enforcing them. So that was a nice holistic picture of the different of the different aspects of what competition across the AI sector actually means anymore these days. And this particular AI output gave the perspective shared its perspective from all the AI from all the leading U.S. companies, rightfully so. But there is a bit of a look that we could do with the Chinese AI companies. Look at these exact same points and comparing and contrasting. Because going back to the question of what does it mean to win these days? What is a winning model, and what does it mean to win? Right. And there's going to be a competition of trying to be the best, but what are we trying to be the best of at this point? And with US and China now really neck and neck in this whole, not just AI race, but the vie for global power, we see that United States has experienced a bit of a decline, and China is catching up. Is it the worst thing if China decides to be right there neck and neck, which it is with the US? Are we losing lives over this?
not as of now. I mean, not as it's too. We might not have to, but then again, like we saw with the WeChat models, isn't the capability of models isn't just what makes a company competitive, or what would make a country competitive, right? As we saw, there's in the listed companies, there's a varying few, for each sort of stage within this competitiveness. So, we have Palantir, Microsoft, we have Dale AI up there as well. So, it seems like different companies lead different things. It's hard to say where these Chinese companies sort of place between.
Yeah, I think naturally we're never going to have the full visibility of the state of Chinese AIs as we do with American AI companies. And I just really want to look forward to a future where we're having a healthy competition of who's the best. Yeah, throw the compute against each other and see who comes out on top, just for the fun of it, right? No, and let's try not to like arm any defense systems that can cause physical harm to either group of either populace, right? And I guess on that note, we will have to bring our knowledge segment today to an end. And we'll have to skip the barcade segment as well, because we're short on we're just about to hit the 30-minute mark. And thank you for tuning into today's stream. We hope you enjoyed watching it just as much as we did planning it. And please check out our next one later today at 5 p.m. And as always, we would love to know what you think about our stream. Leave the comments in the chat, and we hope that you'll also consider supporting our platform as a member. And now, the moment you've been waiting for, your minute of Zen. All right, let's lock in. Have a great day, and we'll see you at 5. Bye now.